Have you ever wondered why, no matter how hard you try to be perfect, kind, and interesting, the world still seems to pass you by as if you were invisible? There is a cruel paradox currently existing, especially clear in modern American society. We see countless people exhausting themselves just to be noticed. They drape themselves in gorgeous outfits, laugh loudly at networking parties, or endlessly flex their glittering achievements on social media. Yet ironically, beneath that glamorous veneer, they remain completely invisible. In contrast, some individuals simply walk into a room, doing nothing, forcing nothing, and the atmosphere shifts instantly. Every eye is automatically drawn to them, as naturally as iron filings finding a magnet. This difference lies not in social skills or physical appearance. It is the physics of the soul. Carl Jung pointed out a secret few will tell you. You attract the world not by what you do, but by the energy density of the self you possess. Just as a star with immense mass creates a gravitational pull that bends space, a mind that achieves wholeness holds the power to bend reality around it. Part 1. The non-pursuing ego. To fully grasp the mechanics of this magnetism of the soul I just mentioned, let me tell you a story, a vivid memory that I believe, somewhere in your own life, you have either encountered or yearned to embody. I remember a winter night in a crowded jazz bar deep in the heart of New York. The air was thick with the smell of smoke, strong liquor, and the soaring and dipping notes of a saxophone. Elena and I sat at a bar. That was a stage in my life when I was still grappling with the insecurities of youth. My ego was like a beast starving for validation. I constantly scanned the room, looking for familiar faces, trying to strike up conversations with strangers, or laughing louder than necessary just to avoid feeling lost in the crowd. Subconsciously, I was broadcasting a distress signal. Look at me. Confirm that I exist. But Elena was different. She simply sat there, still as a rippleless lake amidst the noisy storm. Savoring her red wine, eyes half closed, she was completely immersed in the rhythm of the jazz. She didn't look at anyone, didn't attempt to make eye contact to seek attention, nor did she care who was walking in or out. She was not present to hunt for anything from anyone else, and a strange result occurred, a phenomenon I call the paradox of attraction. Men in the bar kept approaching us. They were hypnotized by her, not because Eleanor was the most beautiful woman in the bar that night, but because she appeared to be the only person in that room who didn't need anyone else to feel whole. While the rest of us were erratic winds, trying to blow through to make a sound, she was a tree with roots struck deep into the earth. And the eternal law remains. The wind must always curve around the tree. The tree never chases the wind. Why did Elena's non-action create such a powerful magnetic field? To decode this, we must have the courage to look into the darkest corner of our own minds, a place Carl Jung illuminated with a haunting question. But what if I should discover that the least among them all, the poorest of all the beggars, that these are within me, and that I myself am the enemy who must be loved? What then? This quote from Jung acts like a scalpel cutting straight into the tumor of modern psychology. The effort to pursue, the straining to impress, its nature stems from the beggar hiding within your mind. Unless you accept and love that lacking, impoverished part of yourself, you will unconsciously project that need outward. You turn every meeting, every relationship, into a marketplace of energy exchange, where you extend your hand to beg for attention to fill the gaping hole inside. In analytical psychology, we call this state psychic hunger. Imagine it this way. When you actively seek attention with the mindset of someone in need, you are emitting a vibrational frequency of scarcity. Although your words might be sweet and your appearance glamorous, the other person's unconscious, which is thousands of times sharper than the conscious mind, will immediately smell the desperation. They perceive you as an invisible burden, a black hole waiting to drain their energy, and the natural human reaction to a burden is to avoid it, to run away. That is why the more you try to text, the more you try to explain, the more you strive to please, the further they drift away. Returning to Elena, based on my analysis of these Jungian theories, her magnetism came from the fact that she had established her own axis mechanism. She withdrew all projections. She didn't look at the men in the bar as sources of confidence for herself. She was energetically self-sufficient. In physics, a stationary object with great mass creates a gravitational field that pulls lighter objects toward it. The mind operates in the same way. People who are anxious, lacking, or wavering, like those men, will be sucked toward the person with the greatest soul weight. Eleanor's composure was the manifestation of that weight. She didn't need to borrow anyone's light to shine, and that absolute independence triggered the desire to conquer and admiration within the collective unconscious of those around her. We can see this mechanism clearly in everyday examples. Look at the overly enthusiastic salespeople, those I call hunters. They call constantly, they offer discounts, they beg, they present long-winded lists of product features, but customers just feel annoyed and want to hang up. Conversely, observe the master salespeople, those who are cool and composed. They don't try to sell, they diagnose. They are willing to say, this product might not be for you if you aren't ready for change. That statement isn't arrogance, it is self-respect. When they dare to refuse a customer, when they show they don't need the transaction to survive, the customer suddenly develops an intense desire to buy. They want what isn't easily obtained. They want to belong to that solid axis. Or on a larger scale, look at Keanu Reeves. Why does the entire internet worship him so? Not because he appears glamorous on the red carpet with dozens of bodyguards, but because of the photos of him eating a sandwich alone on a park bench, riding the subway like a normal person in worn-out shoes. He is an A-list star who doesn't need the aura of Hollywood to define himself. That non-need, that proud solitude, separated him from the crowd of stars screaming for attention. He became an icon, a giant magnet, drawing in the respect and love of millions, precisely because he never opened his mouth to beg for it. But Elena's story does not end there. If she were merely sitting still and gentle as a tree, she would likely receive only bland respect, not burning desire. To possess a calm confidence strong enough to overpower others, Elena held a darker secret few dare to admit. Her attraction did not come from trying to be a good person. It comes from a much deeper and thornier place, a place we are about to enter. Part 2. Shadow Integration. Continuing the story of the inner garden, if we stop at cultivating only good and peaceful things, we perhaps only touch half the truth of attraction. A garden without protective walls, without thorns, will soon be trampled by anyone passing by. To possess Elena's level of composure, confident enough to command the room, she holds a pricklier secret, something psychology calls shadow integration. I remember vividly a small but pivotal moment at the bar that night. While we were talking, a rude, drunk man cut in, shoving Elena's shoulder to order without an apology. My natural reflex, programmed by nice girl syndrome, was to laugh it off, scoot over, and tell myself, let it go, to keep the peace. I feared conflict, feared being judged as difficult, and above all, feared displeasing others, even when they were clearly wrong. But not Elena. She didn't scream or show fear. She turned, looked straight into his eyes with a cold, piercing, unblinking stare. She stayed silent for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to thicken the air around her, then spoke a short but sharp sentence, forcing the man to freeze, step back, and awkwardly apologize. In that moment, a jolt of electricity ran down my spine. I realized Eleanor wasn't just gentle like the tree I imagined. She had claws. She had the capacity for self-defense and was ready to attack if her boundaries were violated. Strangely, that potential for damage made her incredibly seductive. She wasn't a harmless rabbit. She was a resting lioness. Respect arises not from weakness, but from controlled power. Carl Jung encapsulated this truth in a classic quote: "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." We are often taught that to be loved, we must hide the ugly parts: anger, ambition, sexuality, selfishness, and survival instincts. We push them into the unconscious, creating what Jung called the shadow. But ironically, when you completely repress the darkness, you unintentionally extinguish your most powerful life force. A man or woman who denies the shadow becomes harmless, bland, and lifeless. They become nice in a weak way, people who say yes when they want to say no, who smile when their hearts are crying. And the brutal truth is, no one is attracted to harmlessness. True magnetism, the kind that makes people unable to look away, always contains a dose of danger. We aren't attracted to the purely saintly. We are attracted to those capable of inflicting damage, controlled capability for mayhem, but who choose to control it with morality and reason. That is the energy of protection and authority. Like standing before a samurai, you know he can draw his sword at any moment, but he chooses to keep it sheathed. It is the undrawn sword that creates the weight of presence. To visualize this, look at Thomas Shelby in Peaky Blinders. He is ruthless, calculating, and willing to do immoral things to protect his family. But why do millions still love and feel mesmerized by him? Not because they condone crime, but because Thomas Shelby represents wholeness. He isn't a hypocrite. He accepts his brutal nature. He lives truthfully with both light and dark sides. He doesn't apologize for who he is. The absence of internal conflict creates a consistent energy, making others feel safe following his leadership. Audiences love him not because he's a good person, but because he is a real human in a world full of people wearing moral masks. This leads to a disastrous misunderstanding many fall for, thinking that to be magnetic, one must become a bad boy or bad girl. No, that is a delusion. Those who act toxically, hurting others indiscriminately, possess no magnetism. They are merely wounded children, letting the shadow drive their behavior. The attraction of the so-called bad actually comes from freedom. They are free from the constraints, the hollow social rules that normal people fearfully obey. We crave that freedom, not their cruelty. The truly magnetic person has tamed the monster within, turning it into a loyal bodyguard rather than letting it loose to bite blindly. So how do you, someone likely exhausted from trying to please the world, begin integrating the shadow to reclaim your power? The solution lies in practicing shadow work right in your daily interactions. Start by reconnecting with the strong, prickly personality within you, what I playfully call your inner bitch or inner bastard. This isn't the evil part. This is the part that knows how to protect boundaries. Try learning to say no without any accompanying explanation or apology, just to see how those around you react. I believe that when you refuse an inappropriate request, look straight into their eyes and say, "No, I can't do that." Then stay silent. Don't say, "Sorry, I'm busy because my kid is sick, the car broke down." Explaining is a manifestation of guilt, and it leaks your power. When you dare to disappoint others to protect your own peace, you send a powerful signal: I respect myself. And paradoxically, only when you respect yourself do others begin to respect and feel attracted to you. You will find that your kindness now truly has value, because it is the kindness of someone with the power to choose, not the submission of the weak. When you have enough inner strength to draw the sword but choose to keep it sheathed, you no longer need to growl or show off your power with words. You step into a higher realm of attraction, where words become superfluous, and your presence itself is a steely message. That is when we touch upon the art of space and silence. Part 3. The Art of Containment. Once the sword of decisiveness has been sheathed and the beast within lies submissive, you will find the need to growl or prove your power vanishes completely. Instead, a new space opens up, profound and commanding, where your presence relies not on the volume of your voice, but on the weight of your silence. We are entering the most subtle tier of mental alchemy, the art of the void, or containment. Observing Elena more closely during those nightly conversations, I discovered a unique psychological tactic she applied naturally. Whenever someone, whether a flirting man or a casual acquaintance, asked Elena a difficult, prying, or intentionally provocative question, she never reacted in the usual way. Instead of rushing to answer immediately or speaking more than necessary to justify herself or fill the void, something most of us do out of fear of awkward silence, Elena did the opposite. She held the silence. She looked at the person, her face relaxed but eyes focused, and let the silence stretch for a few seconds. That silent space under her control created an invisible but incredibly powerful pressure, causing the questioner to feel flustered and begin doubting themselves. They wondered, "Did I say something wrong? What is she thinking?" And then, to escape the suffocation of that void, they automatically filled it with further explanations, superfluous information, or even retracted their question entirely. Elena turned silence into a polished mirror, fully reflecting the insecurity, curiosity, and awkwardness of the other person. She didn't need a single word to seize control of the conversation. Her stillness did it for her. Carl Jung, who always sought meaning in the deepest layers of the psyche, once shared a profound insight. The greatest events are not our loudest, but our stillest hours. The lethal and seductive power of this silence stems from a core concept in Jungian psychology called psychic containment. Imagine your mind as a crucible in ancient alchemy. To transform base metal into pure gold, the vessel must be hermetically sealed. If the lid is breached, the precious heat and pressure escape, and the transformation fails. The human mind operates on the same mechanism. Every time you experience joy, sorrow, or an idea, and you immediately vent it by oversharing, writing long social media status updates, or justifying your actions, you are opening the lid. You relieve the immediate emotion, but you also dissipate the psychological energy essential for inner transformation. You become hollow, and a hollow person cannot generate gravitational pull. Conversely, when you practice containment, keeping those emotions and thoughts inside, compressing them rather than rushing to release them, you generate immense psychic pressure. This compressed energy becomes dense, forming a force field around you. This is when the mechanism of projection in others begins to operate. Your silence creates a giant blank screen, because humans always fear what they do not understand and crave what they cannot grasp. Their unconscious will begin to project fantasies, curiosity, and admiration onto that white screen. They paint an image of you in their minds, mysterious, profound, unpredictable, and captivating. You become high value, not because you speak flowery words, but because you keep what is most precious to yourself. The most vivid proof of this power is Anna Wintour, the most powerful woman in fashion. She is famous for her frozen, emotionless face and the dark sunglasses covering her eyes almost constantly. She speaks very little, rarely giving long-winded interviews. Why does she do this? Because she understands the alchemy of silence. If Anna Wintour explained in detail why she chose this collection or hated that one, her mysterious power would vanish. she would be just another editor with personal opinions. But by maintaining silence, she forces a billion-dollar industry to guess her thoughts, to live in fear and craving for her nod of approval. Her silence is a solid throne that no one can topple. Or closer to home, look at the psychological battles in modern dating. Have you ever received a wall of text from someone trying to explain, apologize, or express their feelings excessively? Your feeling at that moment is usually one of being overwhelmed and a slight sense of contempt, because you feel the other person is too dependent on your reaction. Conversely, the person who sends concise, brief, polite, but not superfluous messages always holds the upper hand. They don't rush to answer immediately. They don't explain why they are busy. That economy of words forces you to wait, to think about them, and unconsciously place them in a higher position. That is not a manipulation tactic. It is the self-respect of someone who values their words and energy. So how do we, those who frequently make the mistake of leaking energy through speech, begin to practice this art? Try applying a simple rule that requires high discipline. Do not explain unless asked. And if asked, answer with half the number of words you intended. Next time, when you feel the urge to justify a decision, stop, swallow those words as if swallowing a shot of strong liquor. Or even better, my advice is that if a misunderstanding arises, let it exist without correction. Get comfortable with the pauses in conversation. Do not rush to fill them with meaningless jokes. You will see that when you stop throwing your energy out the window, you will begin to accumulate an incredible inner power. When you have learned to stop interfering with the flow of life with the loud and fearful ego, when you know how to sit still in the eye of the storm with absolute tranquility, you will begin to connect with an order far greater than the conscious mind can conceive. That is when the noise ceases and the miracle of synchronicity begins to knock on the door of your life. Part 4. When Destiny Knocks. It is precisely in this quiet void you have just created, where the noisy ego is forced to retreat, that another operating law of life begins to reveal itself. Stillness now is no longer merely the absence of sound. It becomes an inviting space, a sacred vacuum clearing the path for the final and most mysterious tier of mental alchemy. We are stepping into the land of synchronicity, where the boundary between inner desire and outer reality is blurred, and destiny is not something you go looking for, but something that finds its own way to knock on your door. Those who know Elena often whisper that she is blessed, or simply lucky. They tell me stories that sound absurd about her fortune. Once, Elena wanted to open a solo art exhibition but didn't know where to start. Instead of running around sending portfolios or anxiously calling for sponsors like the crowd usually does, she simply sat drawing at a familiar coffee shop, completely immersed in her world of color, ignoring all distractions. And then, by an incredible coincidence, the man sitting at the next table turned out to be the owner of one of the city's most prestigious galleries, looking for a fresh breeze for his fall collection. Or another time, just as she kindled the intention to travel to Italy for inspiration, the very next day, an old friend suddenly contacted her, offering a pair of plane tickets they couldn't use. But when serendipity becomes a consistent pattern rather than a fleeting exception, we are forced to question the very nature of luck itself. To the ordinary eye, these are coincidences, gifts falling from the sky. But as a psychological observer, I know that in this universe, nothing is random. Elena's luck did not come from begging or calculation. It came from her state of being. When Elena paints, she doesn't paint to be famous or to make money. She paints because it is the mandate of her soul. She falls into a state of flow where the ego vanishes and only pure creativity remains. It is in that moment of focusing her energy entirely inward that she emits a specific, powerful, and clear vibrational frequency. She did not go looking for the opportunity. She became the opportunity. And opportunity, according to an invisible law of physics, is compelled to find the object that matches its frequency. Carl Jung, who spent his life studying these causal phenomena, left us a golden key with the quote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos. In all disorder, a secret order." This is the foundation of synchronicity. Do not confuse this concept with the law of attraction oversimplified in modern self-help books, where you are advised that simply thinking positively will make the universe respond. Jung viewed the issue much more deeply and structurally. According to him, synchronicity occurs when the inner world and the outer world reach a state of unity, when you no longer have internal conflict, when the civil war between the social ego and the instinctual shadow ends, the energy flow within you circulates smoothly, no longer blocked by fear or doubt. At this point, you reach a state I call alignment. You become a living magnet, automatically drawing towards you the people, events, and circumstances compatible with your truest nature. External events occur not due to magic, but as a physical reflection of the mental order within you. Imagine this mechanism like tuning a classic radio. Around us, there always exist thousands of radio frequencies. News, music, static. Opportunities are like those waves. They are always present everywhere. When your mind is full of anxiety, calculation, and fear, you are like a radio suffering from interference, emitting only annoying static. No matter how frantically you twist the dial with external forcing efforts, you cannot catch good music. But when you turn inward, heal your traumas, and recalibrate yourself, you are tuning the dial to your correct frequency. When the frequencies match, the music plays automatically, clear and crisp. You do not create the radio wave, you simply match it. So what is the solution for those feeling unlucky or stuck? Trust the process and stop forcing. We often make the mistake of trying to break down a door we think is meant for us. We send hundreds of job applications, text people who don't love us, and try to cling to dead relationships. First of all, I hope you find calm. Jung advises us to stop. If the door doesn't open, it's not your door, or it's not yet time for you to enter. Instead of trying to pick the lock, return to caring for your inner home. When you are whole, the door reserved for you will open automatically, or the key will be placed in your hand in a way you least expect. That is the operation of destiny when guided by a conscious soul. At this point, let us take a step back to gaze upon the complete portrait of Elena, the ideal model we have decoded together throughout this journey. Look closely. She employs no manipulative psychological tactics, no tricks, no pretense. Her attraction is a tightly linked chain of profound internal transformations. She did not chase anyone at the bar because she mastered her own energy like a sturdy tree. She dared to bare her claws, dared to look straight and respond to the rude man because she had integrated her shadow and possessed the power of protection. She knew how to hold silence before prying questions, turning herself into a container of mystery because she cherished the value of psychic energy. And finally, she allowed destiny to find her in absolute serenity as an inevitability of the law of synchronicity. In conclusion, Elena is the living embodiment of the concept of wholeness that Carl Jung spent his life pursuing. She is a walking magnet, not because she is flawless, but because she is dense. She possesses soul weight. In a world where most people are light because they are hollow, living behind borrowed masks, a human as dense and authentic as Elena will automatically bend the space around her. The surrounding world is lighter, so by the laws of physics, everything must automatically be drawn into her orbit. This is the ultimate state of being magnetic that any of us can touch if we dare to embark on the journey of returning within. However, Every hero's journey has its final trials. When you reach this magnetic state, when you begin to feel you have the power to influence the emotions and attention of others, a lethal trap will silently appear. That is when the ego, instead of serving the psyche, rises to hijack that power for itself. This is the fragile boundary that can turn a compassionate queen into a solitary and arrogant tyrant. Part 5. The Trap of Inflation. Right now, when the halo begins to envelop you, a deadly trap will silently open beneath your feet. Arrogance. This is the moment your ego, instead of submitting to the self, rises more powerfully than ever to usurp that energy source for its own. Let's look straight at the truth. When others start to notice and admire you, they often unconsciously project divine qualities onto you. They view you as a savior, a guide, a place to fill their own voids. And if you are not alert enough, your ego, which is always starving for specialness, will immediately swallow that worship. It will whisper in your ear, "See, you are supreme. You are more special than all of them." You begin to believe you are the source of the light, rather than just the mirror reflecting it. You begin to look down on others with a condescending gaze, viewing their admiration as something you are naturally entitled to for your own service. In Jungian psychology, this phenomenon is called the mana personality, a state where the small ego becomes swollen, inflation, by the illusion of power, mistaking the universe's energy for its personal property. Carl Jung issued a stern warning to distinguish this fragile boundary. Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking. This quote exposes the opposing nature of magnetism and narcissism. A person with genuine magnetism always operates on a foundation of connection and love. They attract others because they radiate wholeness. They make those around them feel energized, understood, and alive. Conversely, the arrogant are driven by the will to power. They attract others initially with a glittering exterior and excessive confidence, but their ultimate goal is not connection, but domination. They view others as tools to affirm their own value, as pawns on a chessboard to satisfy the ego. Their attraction is a draining type. Anyone near them for too long feels tired, diminished, and exhausted. If you become cold to the point of cruelty, distant to the point of apathy, and despise those lesser than you, you are not a reigning queen or king. You are merely a solitary tyrant imprisoning yourself in a castle of delusion. We can see the tragedy of this arrogance in the case of Elizabeth Holmes, the founder of Theranos. She tried to construct a magnetic image, an artificial deep voice, a minimalist Steve Jobs-style wardrobe, an obsessive, unblinking stare. Initially, she succeeded in attracting billions of dollars and the world's admiration, but that was an artificial magnetism, built on a foundation of the will to power and deceit, completely lacking in love or responsibility for people. She believed she was the chosen one to change the world, to the point where she was ready to trample on the truth and the health of others. The result was a total collapse, not just of her career, but of her character. That is the price paid when the ego mistakes itself for God. In contrast, look at Keanu Reeves as the perfect counterweight of humility. Despite being worshipped by the world as a saint of Hollywood, he maintains a sustainable attraction and love across decades. Why? Because he never allowed mana to invade him. He still rides the subway, still gives up his seat to strangers, still sits eating a sandwich alone in the park. He understands a truth Jung always reminded us of. He does not create the energy. He is merely the channel for the energy to pass through. He keeps his feet on the ground, connecting with ordinary reality, and that very humility protects him from being incinerated by the limelight. He refuses power to choose love, and paradoxically, power submits to him even more. So how do you enjoy the gift of attraction without being corrupted by it? The solution lies in practicing grounding every day. Whenever you feel yourself getting carried away by praise or adulation, immediately return to the smallest, most ordinary tasks. Wash the dishes by hand, clean the house, help a stranger without needing recognition, or bow your head to thank those who serve you. These actions do not diminish your value. Rather, they remind your ego of its true place. You are a human, not a god. The magnetism you possess is a gift of wholeness, and your highest duty is to use it to serve life, not to force life to serve you. Our journey from the stumbling steps of seeking attention through the dark nights of the soul to integrate the shadow, learning silence and accepting destiny has finally brought us back to the humble ground. Now, when illusions have dissolved and the ego is tamed, only one question remains. After all these transformations, how do you bring this wholeness into every breath of daily life without trying anymore? The answer awaits in the conclusion of this journey. We have walked a long road together, not on the bustling streets of New York, but deep into the darkest and most brilliant corners of the soul. We started with the image of Eleanor at the noisy jazz bar, a symbol of stillness amidst the rush. From learning to power down, to stop chasing external illusions, we bravely entered the cave of the shadow to reclaim our claws and the power of self-defense. We learned to compress energy into containers of silence, and finally opened our hearts to receive the miraculous synchronicities the universe offers. But after all those techniques and philosophies, what remains? The final message I want to send you, as a distillation of Carl Jung's entire theory on human development, is this: attraction was never, and will never be, for those trying to become someone. The world has enough copies, enough perfect but hollow social masks. Magnetism is a sacred reward reserved for those who dare to return to being themselves. It is the journey of peeling off layers of fear to reveal a naked version, perhaps imperfect, perhaps scarred, but a whole version. As Jung once said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Do not seek to shine, for artificial light will eventually fade when the power source runs dry. Seek instead to silence the fearful noise in your head. Cultivate your inner garden with understanding and compassion. When your mind is still, when you accept both your light and your dark, you will automatically emit your own light. You will become a lighthouse standing tall in the ocean. And remember this immutable law of nature. The lighthouse never runs to find the ships. It simply stands there, steadfast and brilliant, and its light guides every vessel home. The journey to becoming a magnet is not a destination, but a daily practice of conscious living. I would love to hear your story. Have you ever felt exhausted from wearing a mask? Or perhaps ask yourself the hardest question: which part of your shadow have you been trying to hide? And what would happen if you finally let it speak? Or have you experienced magical moments of synchronicity when you dared to live true to yourself? Please share your experience in the comments below, because your story could be a beacon for others. If this article touched a deep part of your soul, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue together on deeper explorations of the mind. Thank you for staying until these final lines. Stand firm and shine in your own way.